Hi, guys. Welcome back to Women's Splain. We have a very exciting episode today with the founder of BEZI. We have Ilay here, and we will walk through her journey being a co-founder. Do you want to start by just talking briefly about yourself?
Absolutely. So I founded BEZI about 6 months ago in New York City, and we are making labneh a thing. Labneh is a Mediterranean dairy dip. It's traditionally served next to hummus, but it's not famous here yet. I'm Turkish. I grew up with labneh, and I love cheese. So it was a product that I felt really passionate about and launched a business about 6 months ago. But when you look into my background, I'm absolutely not a food girl. So I grew up in Istanbul, came here with business school. I went to Columbia Business School, but I was at McKinsey majority of my life.
Wow.
So went to McKinsey out of college, and similar to a lot of people's journey, I was like a finance banking consultant. Came here for business school, and one of the best programs that McKinsey has is you get sponsored for 2 years to go to business school, but then have an offer back in New York office if they like you, and then it gives these 2 years of freedom to do whatever you would like. So unlike a lot of my friends back then, so some people were like, oh, let's try investment banking, let's try PE. I was like, I want to make cheese. And it was this feeling I had about a product that I was really passionate about. I was in New York. It was 2 years of doing whatever I wanted. So I was like, I'm just going to make cheese.
Yeah.
So I ended up emailing everyone. And so it was a very random outreach from farms in Italy, farms in Wisconsin, whatever I can find. And one brand that was making ricotta in Red Hook called Salvatore Brooklyn reached back, and they were like, okay, sure, come.
Wow.
Whatever, of course.
Yeah.
But my CV, when you look into it, is Columbia Business School, McKinsey, finance. I had nothing to do with food.
Yeah.
Worked there for a little bit as an intern, did whatever I can. It was literally this one little shop that one lady was churning ricotta on the side. And then there was a desk on the other side.
Wow.
So I worked there. Then after that, I worked at a farm.
Wow.
So I milked sheep, milked cow, learned how to make cheese from scratch.
Yeah.
But kind of let that experience go after business school because it just didn't make sense to move forward in that path at that point. When you think about it, launching a cheese business would take about $1.5 million in the city to get the recipe right, get the commercial kitchen, really build something that would be sustainable. I didn't have the funding then.
Yeah.
It was the student loans of $200,000 that McKinsey was paying for. I was like, who's going to pay for that? And then plus the visa and everything that come with that, I was like, this doesn't make sense. I'm going to go back to McKinsey. So I went back to McKinsey New York office. Became an engagement manager there, fully finance. But you know how you would do fun facts in a meeting room? Mine was I was a cheese lady.
Yeah.
And people were like, what? And I'm like, yeah, but I also understand finance.
Yeah, exactly.
It was one of those things that I didn't think about it at all, but it was an experience that I really wanted to have.
Yeah.
Then I went back to another startup called Getter. They were a $12 billion grocery delivery platform that originated from Istanbul.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the purple bikes.
Yeah, the purple and the yellow.
So I launched a business here in the US with the founder.
Oh, great.
It was, I was at McKinsey. There were a lot of McKinsey Turkish folks that were helping with the business. And they were like, you should come here. And so what was really interesting at that point is I was a really good consultant, but I always had this itch of wanting to do something that was my own. And it felt like it was a safe place to try that. It was a big corporate scale up. You would have a head of marketing, head of merchandising type of a title. And then I would have a team. I would have a P&L ownership. So at one point, I was leading all the merchandising sales on the platform for about $40 million of P&L.
Wow.
So I jumped there. But what was great about that job is where I met my co-founder, which was the heir of one of the biggest cheesemaker families in Turkey.
Oh, wow.
So if you look into my background, no one would anticipate that I have cheese in my background. But I met him, and his surname is the name of the brand. I was like, hey, I love cheese. Yeah, I love cheese. I didn't even think about starting anything, but I was like, I love cheese so much. I just want to talk cheese with you. And it is so funny because Hasan, my co-founder, he's born into that family, but his passion is obviously not cheese. So he goes okay, hi, sure. So we became really good friends. Still wasn't thinking about launching my business. But he went back to the family company after his internship, and he came back to me saying that, hey, the family company wants to do something in the US beyond what we're doing currently. And the whole story, which is like a long one, came back to me because it was like cheese was something I was really passionate about. I think life is too short not to do something that you're passionate about. And so everything came together, and I was like, why don't we bring Labneh?
I love that.
Bring the category here. No one is leading it. I think it's going to be similar to a hummus. Like everyone's going to be talking about Labneh in the next 5-6 years. I was like, why don't we build a brand here? Like carve it out as a separate entity, a separate recipe. We'll do everything the US way. And we launched BEZI. So that's the whole story of how I came here.
An incredible journey. There's a lot to unpack here. I would love to start from the beginning.
Yes, let's do that.
So you were, what did you study in college, and what was your first job after college?
So it was industrial engineering, economics minor, and McKinsey was my first job out of college.
So you were in Turkey.
I was in Turkey,
And then you're like, all right, like, let's go to business school. Let's apply to CBS and see. Why did you want to go to business school?
Mostly at that point, I think it's like free, like McKinsey pays for it. So why wouldn't you? But then I think when I look into the bigger picture, and now like looking at the person that I've become, I think I needed to like explore different things, because I'm sure a lot of people who grew up in New York would also say the same thing. Growing up in Istanbul means that you have a very small community of people who are either raised from similar families or like similar high schools or similar college. It is a bubble. McKinsey is even a bigger bubble. So I wanted to leave the bubble for a little bit. So that enabled me to actually do something that was different.
And at school, were you kind of exploring food, or I know you love cheese, but was that something that you were exploring in terms of classes and clubs?
So there were like two passions of mine. One is art, the other one's food. So I was in the board of Art Society Club, which was like so fun. So fun. Like you go to galleries and be like, hey, I'm the Art Society board member. Doesn't mean anything in reality, but it just gave me a connection to something I was really passionate about. And the other thing was food. I grew up in a family that was like very food forward. My grandma is an amazing cook. My mom is an amazing cook. So it was a part of myself that I wanted to build community around it. So while I was exploring things regarding food, of like even like different restaurants in the city, because coming to New York from a place that is so far away, you're just so hungry to like see everything. Like I would go to the supermarket, and even let's say good culture cottage cheese, that's a different thing for me. Like I would just buy it and eat it. So what that experience made me realize is I know, like, and I tasted every CPG brand out there that I could find in the categories that I'm interested. I would do that. I would like go to all these club events. I would do like meet a lot of people, do everything I can do under the sun to explore something I was really passionate about. But it was never a job search. I didn't want to be a part of that. And it is a privileged thing to say, because a lot of people come to business school to find their next gig. I felt like this was a very lucky position to be. And I had a gut reaction of thinking of like, maybe I should like explore investment banking. Like, why would I? Like it just, for me, it didn't feel the right path. So I went complete opposite way and did everything I can do around food and CPG and meeting people. Not purposeful though. Just I ended up liking it.
No, I think that's great. And it really shows that you're so passionate about it. And it's like deeply rooted from your family and like growing up and upbringings. And that's really important, especially being at a place like, Columbia Business School, where everyone's like, I'm going to do like go back to consulting or like do banking. So I think that was like probably a good time in your life to like explore your passions and be like, oh, I actually want to, do this at some point. Right.
Which was like fantastic. But it was so funny because all my friends started calling me the cheese lady. Because like they're like, oh yeah, this one is the cheese lady. And I'm like, hi.
Like, I love cheese. Okay, so then you finish business school and you're like, I have to go back to McKinsey. You're there for a few years. And then you said you were focusing on financial services. Were you able to kind of get on consumer like projects at all?
What was like really interesting at that point, and I think it's more towards like the mindset shifts, and I'm sure everyone would like have similar journeys in their life, right? Going into McKinsey, you become so dedicated. I was like, I'm going to become engagement manager so fast.
Yeah.
And I did become engagement manager so fast. That meant that I need to stick with financial services. It was like credit underwriting processes, checking processes, that kind of, it is absolutely not like what I'm doing. And it, like, I felt like I was passionate about it. And if you give me anything, I'll feel passionate eventually because I'm a nerd deep down.
Yeah.
But I did not even explore anything. I was like, I'm going to be in McKinsey.
Yeah.
I'm going to go so fast. Da, 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 da. All of that thing. I like drank the Kool-Aid and never explored during my time there until I think I felt like I shouldn't be there anymore.
Yeah. I think a lot of our listeners also kind of feel very similarly, like, you know, very hardworking and passionate and enter like finance consulting, like that's my goal.
Yeah.
And then you're there and you're working so hard and you're like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to do this. And then, you know, a lot of founders that we've interviewed are like, oh, I want to like explore different passions of mine. So how did you kind of balance like the crazy work hours at work and also kind of still being tapped into like the consumer products food space?
So I think, and this is gonna, I'll just do the very honest thing because I think a lot of people are like, oh, try to carve it out. I didn't carve out time. Like anything weekday, I was just McKinsey.
Yeah.
I would wake up around, and this was like COVID, so I graduated in 2020.
Okay.
So I was working from home for a little bit. Then I started traveling, but like I would wake up early at 7 and start working.
Yeah.
That was how much dedicated I was, and I would finish around like midnight.
Wow.
So that meant I had nothing.
Yeah,
like it
no
was
free time.
No free time. Everything was McKinsey and my work there.
Yeah.
So I didn't explore anything. But over the weekends, because of who I am and then the friends that I created, I would be like, oh, a new restaurant opened around the corner. Let's go do that. Like I would go to grocery store. I love going to grocery stores. So I would go to grocery stores and try different things. But never I've purposely carved out any time to see anything that was like, would be different than my life, which I think if I look back at it, I think I would have maybe discovered who I am earlier as an adult woman if I did that. But I wasn't that smart while I was at McKinsey. I was very focused on like really wanting to do what I did until the point came that I think I realized like I don't want to be here. And within 3 weeks, I was gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that's super important. It's like when people have like side hustles, you can say like, oh, you can carve out time, but it's hard when you're literally in like in a consulting or like finance role. Like exactly like me too. Like I have so many hobbies, but I don't do that during the week at all. So then you were like, all right, I can't do this anymore. And then how did the job search go when you got the offer from Getter?
Yeah, so they reach out to me.
Okay.
And I think for everyone who's like listening, I think it is a learning because that wasn't the best way that I went about with that. It came to a point that because I wasn't exploring and because I was so dedicated, it was like nothing. And then immediately blew up. Not great. I think a slow burn is like better than like my process. But when that happened, they were trying to like reach out to me for so long. They were like, oh, we want you. You should come. Da, 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 da. And I was like, oh, I'm happy at McKinsey. Like that kind of conversation. But I do vividly remember the day that I blew up. It was like we were working for one of the bigger banks. We had this like one project that I was the engagement manager leading the work. And it was a work that the CEO was really invested in. And there was a piece of regulatory components that we were not supposed to touch, like one of those really messy like McKinsey consulting projects that like you need to keep that side of it but really build a really good checking experience. And something we couldn't like find a middle ground, which like happens at consulting all the time, like that's your job. But it became so much of this like process that I found myself, so I remember it was a Sunday, my uncle was visiting from London. And I was on the phone from, I'm not kidding, like an 11 a.m. to on and off until 5 p.m. But I would leave or like early lunch in Waverly and go around the corner, be on the phone.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, I don't want to do it.
No.
I really don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And it's not even about, I think, the lifestyle for me. Like, obviously, some people would feel like, oh, I want to carve out time for myself. Like for BEZI, I also work all the time. Like today is a Saturday. Like this could have been work. It's not work for me. But like you get what I mean, right? If you're passionate about it, you don't think about always thinking about work. But for that, it meant like I can't control my life, can't control my time. I also am not building anything. I'm putting it on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
it's not my business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that I had a trigger moment.
Wow.
I shut down the phone. I called back Getter people. I'm like, I'm in.
Wow.
I didn't even interview anywhere else.
Wow.
So was that the best way to do it? Maybe not. But like their offer was so great that it was like, oh, like we're going to give you this. You're going to be the head of marketing. You're going to lead this department.
That's great.
I was like, that's great.
Yeah.
Ideal process would have been that I did some research and like see what I wanted to do or like explored my passions. But it was such a gut reaction that I immediately jumped and I was gone.
Yeah.
In like 2 weeks, I was like, I'm going, bye, and done.
I mean, I think you see kind of people that like have that moment. They're like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you probably would have ended up in the same position as you are now.
Yeah.
What about your background do you think the Getter team was so excited about and wanted to hire you for?
So I think like one of the things that I really believe in, and mostly as I like become older and like have more work experience, there are two angles of why you would want to hire someone, right? One is their knowledge. The other one's their grit. It was my grit. I have like, if I want to do something and build something, I have so much energy, grit, positivity. I'll keep trying.
Yeah.
That was the piece that they saw me as a business analyst back in Istanbul. And they were like, we'll just throw this girl into whatever like sea or ocean and she's going to stay afloat. She's not going to drown. So that was that. And I understood this more when I joined them because it was one of those scale-ups that a lot of the scale-ups I'm sure would have similar. It was just very hectic. There were no structure, but a lot of money.
Yeah.
And a lot of pressure to grow. So I had no knowledge on like quick commerce. I had no knowledge on delivery space. But I had so much like grit and excitement for the things that I feel passionate about. They were like, oh, Ilay will figure it out.
Yeah.
I became head of marketing with zero marketing expertise.
Wow.
I was like, sure, I'll figure it out. But it was one of those like jobs that I think it would have been better if I actually thought about it more deeply. Like, how would my life look like? What would my life go after that? Because while I was exploring all of that, I acted out of like a gut reaction of wanting to leave McKinsey, but it wasn't a purposeful reaction of what I want to do in life.
Yeah.
Choose your poison.
Yeah, but that's like a lot of people in these fast-moving industries, and I love that you said grit because that is literally my favorite word.
Yeah.
I'm always like, figure it out, grit. Angela Duckworth, love her.
Yeah, you read the book, right?
Yeah.
Same,
oh my gosh,
same.
I love her. Like literally the best book ever. And then how was the experience at Getter, like I guess different from McKinsey? I know that it was like definitely like more fast-paced. You were figuring things out. Like what was that experience like, and how were you like able to learn on the ground?
Yeah, and I tell this to a lot of friends who are at McKinsey currently exploring. So McKinsey gives you a lot of structure. Like
the framework.
But like everything about your like career is also structured. Like you find a CST, which is client services team. Let's say you're serving for a certain client.
Okay.
That will have an ongoing project that would have certain partners, certain associate partners, like things that you do, the projects you're a part of. So you start as an associate. If you're good, you could become an engagement manager, then associate partner, then partner. So there's like a train that you sit on and train goes somewhere.
Yeah.
Versus a job like Getter. No structure, no train, no growth. Like you don't know what your salary is going to be next year. Versus at Getter, you don't like McKinsey, you don't even need to think about it. You know that if you do this thing that will get 20% bonus. No structure whatsoever.
Yeah.
So that I've realized once I jumped on the other side to a scale up, like I was like, oh, I never thought about my career. McKinsey did that for me as long as I like did my job. Versus here, you gotta not only do your job, but build the business, stay that afloat. You have team members that you need to take care of and build their careers because they depend on you. There's no structure for that. And then you need to think about where you go in your life as, let's say, head of marketing. Like, what's your next job?
Yeah.
So that was the biggest difference that I gave zero thought about.
Yeah.
So anyone who's looking to leave McKinsey, I think that's worth thinking about.
Yeah.
I'm not saying McKinsey is the best place in the world, but there is that stark difference that you don't think about, like, what is my next step after associate partner?
Yeah.
And that's your salary. And that's your client. So that was the biggest difference. And I did struggle with that a lot, actually. But the benefit of like jumping to McKinsey was like from McKinsey to Getter was owning a P&L. You can never say working at McKinsey that you, let's say, made this desk. You can't say that. Or you built this business. You can't say that.
You like helped someone to build it.
You help someone to build it, but not even. Like, so you do a beautiful deck because you're so expensive, they're not going to have you stay around for the 2 years of building that.
Yeah.
And then you're not going to be there on the decision making and building it and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that was such a like high for me to do that at Getter.
Yeah.
It was like building a business. Like we were obsessed about the basket value, how much people were shopping on the platform. So when I took over that merchandising job, it was $30. When I like left it, it was $60.
Wow.
People were buying twice more. Like that is so tangible.
Yeah.
And you see how people react to the decisions you made. I never had this high at McKinsey.
Yeah.
So did really enjoy that a lot. Like we acquired Gorillas, we acquired Fresh Direct. Like all of those moments were such big highs that at McKinsey that could only be a great steer code that you built a beautiful deck.
Yeah.
So I really loved that piece. Really struggled with the HR piece. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm sure you got a first taste of what building a business was like.
Exactly.
And then you mentioned that you met your co-founder at Getter.
Yes.
Were you guys working together?
So initially we were not. So he was more, you know how you would have these interns to put together like the presentation and the leadership meeting stuff. So he was doing that.
Okay.
And we became friends and he was working for another department. I went to the friend who was heading that department. I'm like, what do you do with this guy?
Yeah.
She was like, oh, like he helps me build slides. I'm like, he's a smart guy. I need him. Give it to me. Like I need Hasan.
Wow.
He's like a great guy.
Yeah.
And I was able to steal him from another department and we worked together for about a year.
And what did you see in him that you were like, I need to work with him?
I think
Other
it's
than
like
the cheese
yeah. I mean, cheese was like a friendship connection.
Yeah.
I think it was like there were two things I think about Hasan that we initially bonded. The first one, he is, and I don't want to say fun, but you know how you would connect with someone and start like laughing and cracking
You just
jokes
know you're gonna get
immediately.
along.
Yeah. We were like, oh, we get along really
Yeah.
well. This is great. And then the other piece was grit. And I do really love that piece about people. Like if there's a problem, you want to solve that problem. You don't necessarily want to act like you're solving that problem or like do a half-assed job. Now, so he had that grit, and I did really respect that. And I was like, I need this. We had a really big project. I was like, I need this to help me out to build this thing together.
Yeah.
And I still hire on the same thing.
Yeah.
Like even for like demo people that's currently selling BEZI, I'm looking for grit. I'm not looking for their experience selling Ithaca hummus 5 years later. It's like, do you have the grit to actually convince people to buy something that they've never tasted?
No, it's so important. I feel like that is like what you need in someone. And you had no experience in marketing, but you had the grit. So it was able to, you know, work itself out.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about BEZI.
Yes.
So you met Hasan, you guys became good friends.
Yeah.
And then I guess how did the idea of BEZI come about? I know you mentioned that he was like, oh, we should do something, you know, in the US. How did you kind of determine that market and how did you land on Labneh?
So initially, Bahçıvan, which is the family company, they've been selling here cheese for about 15 years.
Okay.
Ethnic cheese. You would not see it in Whole Foods or any other grocery stores. You would see it in like the Arab supermarkets, let's say in New Jersey. And they wanted to build something that was a little different, but still in the same space. It would be, for example, bringing like a Turkish kashar cheese into like that, never thinking about like Americanizing a product.
Yeah.
And he was like, this is the deck that someone built for us. What do you think? And I read the deck and I'm like, oh God, no.
You're
This
like,
is not.
I could do better.
Yeah, I'm like, no. And now I was like, why don't you like get Labneh? So that was something that I think it just came to me through, I think, exposing myself into CPG on my personal life for so long.
Yeah.
I think the idea just came to me. I'm like, let's do Labneh. Like none of these other cheeses would work.
Yeah.
Labneh is picking up. We looked at Google Trends, and from 2022 to today, people Google Labneh twice more.
Wow.
Versus hummus is the same.
Yeah.
So there's this ongoing interest. You go into restaurants, you see Labneh in the menu now.
Love
You didn't
Labneh.
see that
Yeah.
last year. Yeah. So I was like, there's all these like undergoing like momentum that is happening. So I pitched him that idea. And of course, like he took it to the family. They really loved it. And it started becoming more of a real idea. And it became more real when we decided that we need to like carve it out as a separate entity of me being a co-founder.
Yeah.
And then we'll brand it as a different product. That's when it became like very real that we're gonna own Labneh, we're gonna create category, it's gonna look like a certain way. Like everything about BEZI, we started thinking about it for about a year before we launched.
Okay, and then you were still working at Getter at this time, or did you quit?
No, I was still working at Getter. And that's, I think, one thing that I would like highly recommend for anyone who is launching their business. Especially food takes a long time. And I'm sure people like who is in tech will also say the same thing. But food is very real, from like the recipe creation to FDA approval to the packaging finalization. Like we were almost late because the lids didn't fit. So like there's all these like things that comes with that it give me a cushion to take my sweet time building something that I was really passionate about. Versus if I didn't have an income or didn't have a job, I don't think BEZI would taste the same way because I would want to rush it. Versus like the everything bagel one, it flies off the shelf. We iterated on it like 5-6 times, and you might be like, it's Labneh and everything bagel seasoning, what's there to iterate? From like the poppy seeds to the sesame seeds to the Niger, like there's all these details that I think a food needs space to think about and age on it, and like I wouldn't be able to do it in the same way. So give me that cushion, and I would work over the weekends and then do my day job.
True side hustle.
Exactly.
And then so you quit after a year of iterating. Did you already have like a good enough product at that point? And were you selling? Were you getting good reviews?
We were not selling. So it was kind of like serendipitous because the moment that I quit was when Getter shut down here in the US. So even though we acquired Fresh Direct, the Getter business, which was the investors were Sequoia, Mubadala, and everyone else, they decided to shut down every international business Getter had. While I was there was a point that we had so much funding that money didn't matter. And then towards the end of it, there was so little money that we were trying to stay afloat in creative ways. The writing was on the wall for the last 6 months of our operations that it was going to shut down. So I waited and like kind of, I don't know, it's like a captain sinking the ship kind of thing. I wanted to be the captain for my team. So we kind of sank the ship. And then that was like May of last year. And I took June off. And July, we did like a soft launch. So I announced to everyone that I was going to do BEZI. And September, when we had BEZI on the shelves as a retail product.
Oh my gosh, it was very fast. I guess you already had the product.
We already were working on the product. So all of that, we didn't have distribution. Every store that we went in, I went there myself, sold it myself. Built a team that would deliver. We still do deliver our own goods once a week. Now we're like selling a lot that it justifies us having a cooler, like reefer truck to take it around the city every week. But the way that we launched, that was like retail first, no D2C, really going to like the Fairways and Zaybars of the world. I haven't heard anyone in CPG do it in the way that we do. But we really believed in retail. I love retail so much as a product discovery platform that we started like that in September right away. But of course, the product, like we were confident about the recipe. We knew how it would look. Our branding work was done. It was more towards like having the product into the package, which is also a huge challenge because the lids don't fit and all of those things. And it landed in New Jersey port in like August 25th or something.
Awesome.
And then, first delivery September.
That's great. So what is a manufacturing process like? It's in Jersey?
It's in Turkey.
It's in Turkey.
So it's at Hasan's family company. The place is called Lüleburgaz. It's in Thrace area of Turkey, which is very close to Greece border. So what is, I think, special about what we do, it is a non-GMO, all-natural Mediterranean milk. And I know milk has a lot of like journeys. Like there was one point that people try to stay away from milk. And
it's
now
coming back now.
It's coming back now, which I love. But it is like a very natural, non-GMO, like general milk that you would get from Europe and be like, oh, I've never bloated in Europe. That's the milk that we make BEZI with. Changes everything. And we have our own factory. So how we make BEZI, we have the same protein as hummus, half the calories. And that is the Labneh process that we have as BEZI, as our like proprietary recipe. So we do all of that in Turkey. It gives us the confidence to be able to take the product into places like Zaybars and Cinderella and be like, you're never going to have any issues with that whatsoever. And the product comes here in 20 days. in like a reefer container, similar to all these like cheeses that come from France and Italy. It comes in a very certain way. And our product has 270 days shelf life.
Okay.
So that's a lot compared to a lot of dairy products. And we do it because of the technology we have, nothing additive in the product.
Yeah.
So it works this way, and it stays in New Jersey warehouse. Then we sell it all around Connecticut and New York with that.
And then currently you're only in New York?
We're only in New York, but we're everywhere in New York. That's not Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, or Target.
Okay.
So from Cinderella to like Met Fresh around the corner, or Fairway, or Happier Grocery, or Pop-Up, we have BEZI there.
Awesome.
And one of the biggest fortes we have is basically our retail game. But when we started, I literally walked to all these stores myself.
Yeah.
So that's how we got in. And now we have a distributor,
That's
of course.
awesome.
Life is a little different.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, so I know that you have like a very strong food background and you're co-founder with the you know, cheese and manufacturing, but you were probably doing everything in between, like R&D, marketing, distribution. Like, how did you kind of balance that as, you know, just being one or two people? How was that?
You don't balance. That was literally the conversation we had with Hasan.
Yeah.
So it is very tough because I think as the business grows, like initially when we started, I was like, oh, this is good. I'm cruising.
Fun. Yeah.
Now it's like I can't keep up with anything. So how we divide the work is I do everything demand. He does everything supply.
Okay.
What it means, like the products, we're building a fourth new flavor, like all of that thing will sit under supply, the logistics, the day, like the deliveries of every week. That's Hasan's responsibility.
Yeah.
And growing the business from like partnerships, marketing, retail launch, what do we do, the strategy, cruising the ship, cash flow, investment, everything sits on my side. But we need to hire a person right now on logistics and operations because we can't keep up with the amount of work. And I think there's like an exponential blowing up thing as you're getting more retailers. Because even, let's say, going into a new distributor needs so much paperwork that I wish there was like someone who would do that for me because it takes 3 hours of my time.
Yeah.
Or even sending UPS shipment.
Right.
2 hours of my time.
Yeah.
Like for me to get the stuff, go to UPS, have it printed, stick up like
just
2 and
hours.
3 hours.
Yeah.
And we're coming to a point that I think we need to hire. But it is one of those things that I think if you do something that you're really passionate about, and that's why I said about like the work-life balance. I don't have a work-life balance, but also I don't care. Because it's something that I feel so passionate about building. Like I love when people eat BEZI and tell me it's the best thing that they ever ate. And that is such a high for me that I like I love sharing that
It's
with
worth
people.
it. Yeah.
I like it's so much worth it. Like, but it is that feeling that like energizes me so much that now it has changed. So I work all the time. Like my mom and sister are here. I woke up early to do our like we're now getting an office paperwork.
Awesome.
Because who's gonna do the office paperwork?
You.
No one else.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that I think now we're learning as a brand how to like maybe create more time for my friends because like I want to go to a ski vacation, but I'm going to do that. Yeah. We haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, it's important. I feel like even if you are passionate about it, you do get burnt out.
Oh yeah. I'm going to be, if this goes on, I have one more year in me, which 1 more year doesn't get me anything at BEZI. So.
Yeah. So right now you guys are bootstrapped?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're 3 co-founders. It's me, Hasan, and Hasan's family company. We do have some cash within our 3 people that is enough to give us a test. And the reason why we're doing this is for 2 reasons. I think one, for the category that we're building. A lot of the times, amazing investors reach out to us, like the people that we look up into every company that they invest in and love what they're doing. They get so excited, they eat BEZI, they're like, this is fantastic. But it, I think, comes to a point that they're like, oh, Labneh is too small. I'm like, exactly, Labneh is too small. We're going to build that category. That is not a best way to raise any capital currently because you need to be able to showcase that Labneh is picking up. We're doing that in New York, but it's not enough to be able to justify a bigger nationwide story. So we want to be able to do that internally to create the category and make people see that this is going to pick up.
Yeah.
And that's also makes much more sense as us as co-founders because I think whilst you're building the business, I'm a firm believer that you need to have ownership of your business.
Yeah.
Because then it's like not yours. And I'm not saying VCs are bad. They're fantastic helpers to build something. But as a co-founder, especially for the folks who are listening to the podcast, you're leaving a very lucrative path of finance, PE, same with like Kiki, right? Like finance, PE, like consulting. You're on a path that you can have a great
So stable.
life, stable life. Like it's fine, right? It's
Yeah.
like you'll have the stuff that I don't have that anymore. So we need to protect ourselves, especially as female founders, to be able to create some sort of comfortable life for us as we're getting older. And I'm very conscious about that. Also, especially as a single woman, because whatever we build as our business is great personally for my story, but also as Ilay, as like this single
Yeah.
female living in New York City.
Yeah.
I need to be able to protect what I'm building too. So it's like both ways. And I think it's worth openly talking about it as
Yeah.
a female founder, because I don't know, I used to get really shy about everything money. And I'm like, why am I shy about?
Yeah. We
It's
should
not-
definitely keep the dialogue going.
Exactly.
I think that's really important, like especially when you're building a business from the
Yeah.
ground up, and you see a lot of early stage companies take on funding way earlier than
Yeah.
they should have. They don't really have, a vision, and then have to like talk to investors and do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So it's really important for you to like know what you
Yeah.
want to do and then what BEZI should be,
Yeah.
and then you can always take on funding after.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll
Yeah.
see. That's what I'm thinking. But
Yeah.
in reality, you never know, because also I think building a CPG business is very cash intensive,
Yeah.
super cash intensive. So we'll see where it takes us.
Yeah. What's been the biggest challenge in your entrepreneurial journey so far?
God, I think the biggest challenge for me, and it's gonna sound like dumb, but anything that comes to like logistics, it gets very frustrating. And I'm not used to it. I'm a corporate girl who's like sitting in an office, building beautiful decks and Excels and like looking pretty and smart.
Yeah.
That's who I was.
Yeah.
But right now, like there are things like our product cannot be frozen. If it gets frozen, I don't know if you ever had like a frostbite ice cream. It's very similar. It ruins the product. We, through our like distribution, by mistake, we froze BEZI twice. Not we as in like me and my co-founder, but our distribution mistakenly put BEZI in their freezer once. That meant at that week, and this was some early days, we had 500 BEZIs in the market that was frozen. I discovered this a couple of hours later. I literally like wore my like sneakers, went to every grocery store in New York City to look at the frozen product and dump it. So I started at noon, finished at 9:30.
Oh my gosh.
And so like that is so frustrating. Like I
Yeah.
almost cried. And towards the last like grocery store, the guy was like, "How do I know you're BEZI?" And I'm like, fucking Google it.
Yeah, you're like,
how about that?
yeah,
But,
I'm
like,
distraught right now.
Yeah, like the guy is like so right. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, how does he know like this random girl coming and chug it like?
Right.
But I was like, there's nothing else that I can do.
Yeah.
So those were like the most frustrating parts about my business that I've never thought it would come. I thought the most frustrating thing would have been cash flow. Like, no. Product is frozen. What are you going to do? There's
Yeah.
no one else. You need to go and dump that. Very frustrating. So those were the toughest things for me
Yeah.
in general.
And you can't plan for it.
You
It's not
can't
like you
plan
have a
for it.
roadmap and you're like, oh, this happened.
Exactly. Absolutely not. Or like I cried in front of UPS once because I was going to send, this is like a very lowest part of my life in general, because I was going to like send these like packages to a couple of important people. All right. Like influencers, couple of grocery stores, big ones, whatever. So I packed them in these like cooler bags with ice, like close them, put it in like these stupid like bags, take it to Staples, and the Staples guy's like, you need to print the label. I can't print it here. I'm like, you print there yesterday.
Is that your job?
Yeah, like the guy's like, no, you need to go there. I'm like, God, okay. I was like, can you just hold on to this? It's like 4:45. Hold on to the packages. I'm gonna print, come back, and 5 p.m. is the pickup. And if you miss that, your product can be ruined on the way. So I think it took me 5 minutes until I printed. I came here and the guy goes there like, oh, they already picked up. I'm like, what do you mean? So I started crying, got all these 10 UPS packages, ran after
Oh
this
my
UPS guy
gosh.
on the street in Union Square, be like, hey,
Like,
for
be like
God's
the
sake,
crazy
stop.
lady, like-
Yeah. And I was like, for God's sake, take it. He took it. But I was crying all the
Yeah.
way. And I was like, this sucks.
frustrating.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So those things are very real.
Yeah.
No one told me that it would be that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
here it is.
Well, I'm super excited about the product.
Yeah,
I know
you.
like we talked about like hummus not being really
Yeah.
a thing like, 10, 15 years ago. And
Yeah.
now Starbucks, the biggest player in the
Yeah.
market. Is that kind of what you see BEZI being for Labneh?
Yeah, that's her dream. And we believe, I mean, there are like few reasons why we believe that can be a thing, right? If you do our job right, or anyone else who's making labneh is also entitled for this opportunity. It just cannot just be BEZI, obviously. But first, we think like labneh is picking up, right? Like people are Googling more, you see it in restaurants more. That's one thing that we really believe in. Dairy is coming back.
It's back.
It is back. I mean, I drink like whole milk all this time. So it's like, I was always cool. I don't know. It's like, as this like dairy person, it's so funny to have that journey because you were like, people are like, oh, you drink milk? I'm like, yeah. Like I was not cool. And now I'm like the cool dairy
I'm
girl.
starting to go back to that. I was only oat milk girl. And like, I have not drank oat milk in a while.
Yeah,
so.
it is interesting. I think I had this journey in like the Impossible Burger. I don't know. It's like you go through these phases. I think dairy was such a strong part of my identity. I didn't let that go. But like everything else, you go with these trends and then you look back and you're like, why did I eat that? So we believe dairy is fully back. And like how we make BEZI, we don't have any seed oils. It's non-GMO milk, complete clean ingredients, no preservatives. And we have same protein as hummus, half the calories, and none of the labnehs in the space can make that. And I think people like to have something that they feel good eating it, but also it tastes fantastic. And we really believe BEZI has hit that niche with like how it's been made. So if we have the right things happening to us, I think a portion of it is luck.
Yeah.
Portion of it is we need to do our job right.
Yeah.
If both things come together, we want to build labneh as a category. And my job is like trying to have our buyers believe in that. Like we were at Expo West, which is one of the biggest CPG exhibitions out there. We had a booth there. For every buyer that is coming in, that's what I'm saying. It is a smaller space. It is growing really fast. Even we got Whole Foods data. It is growing so fast. People are buying more labneh.
Yeah.
But we do need the right retailer to give us a chance to make this happen because this is not a DTC product. This is not a I blew up on TikTok type of product.
Yeah.
It's just not. It needs to be in Whole Foods, in Sprouts, like right markets in front of people's eyes. So they believe that this is a thing.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, well, I'm super excited about BEZI growing. As our last question, what is one piece of advice you would give to, our listeners who are maybe thinking of leaving their corporate job, starting something?
Yeah, I think two folds. One is really, I mean, this is like cheesy, but I think it's true. Like really believing yourself. If you don't believe yourself and think that you're the smartest, hottest, whatever person ever on earth, yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's harder to make other people believe in your story. I wasn't feeling confident at all when I was at Getter. I fabricated that confidence so that I can actually launch BEZI. And I think that is very much needed as you're building a business because there is going to be no one to cheer you on. There's going to be no one, like a manager, to be like, thumbs up, you did great in this assignment. There's going to be no one.
Yeah.
And even if you do something that is fantastic, there's also going to be no one who's going to be like, you're on the right path.
Yeah.
You just need to believe in yourself. And I did not have that when Getter was shutting down because that experience for me from like growing business to shutting business, a lot of the things I associated myself, which kind of took away my self-confidence. You need to have that back. And if you don't have it, fabricate it. You're going to get there anyways once you see like you're doing good things.
Yeah.
That's one thing I'll say. Second thing is launch when you're ready to launch. Because for a lot of people who would be in our like similar shoes, leaving a great corporate job is very real out there not to make money. And I say this as like a new 6-month startup founder. It's very real and it's going to get more real as some people are going to start buying homes. You're never going to be in a position to buy a home, at least for where I'm at, right?
Yeah.
My home is BEZI.
Yeah. And you have to be okay with that.
You have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Like you have to be okay with like staying in the apartment while there's like life progresses around you. So I would say launching when you're ready and feeling confident and taking that stress of like, am I doing the right thing in a place that is more cushion is needed so that you can like jump onto something and work on it once you feel more confident about what the product is, what you're building, and all that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, no, I think that was great advice. And thank you so much for coming
Thank you
on.
for having me.
Where can we find you
So,
and BEZI?
so currently in New York City,
Yeah.
in all these like local chains that is not Whole Foods. So that would be like from Fairway to Gourmet Garage to Union Market to Citarella, Zabar's, Happier Grocer, Pop-Up. Like we're there. And we also have a store locator that you can find on our website. For the folks who are not in New York City currently, I'm trying really hard.
Soon.
I think it's going to take us a couple of months, but we have some stuff that is very exciting that we're building that's going to get BEZI out of New York City. So soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for listening.
you.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
For any questions, comments, please follow us or DM us on Womansplain Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and email us as well. And go try BEZI.
Thank you.